Hi guys, I want to read you this story. This is going to be the first story. I found these really interesting stories online that I thought you guys would find really interesting. Super creepy, super scary. So, the first one I have here is called The Creature in the Crawl Space. And I think you guys are about to get creeped out. This is a bone-chilling story. It may be short, but it's sweet and bitter to the point. When I was around 10, my family moved into a new home. It was a bit older, had a lot of weird quirks, including a super creepy basement. After exploring a bit, my sister and I discovered a crawl space in the basement. You had to move a piece of wood paneling on the wall to access it. Being kids, we thought this was amazing and figured it could be a new hideaway for us. It was massive for a crawl space. It looked like it continued under the lawn and inside of it. Instead of It was a massive for a crawl space. It looked like it continued under the lawn instead of ending where the house did, like a normal crawl space. It was fairly well lit, except for the back corners. It was about 3 feet tall, so even as a kid, you weren't able to stand up down there. We dragged a bunch of toys and blankets and started to do normal kid stuff. After playing down there for a bit, we both started to hear some rustling in the back of the corner of the room. We assumed it was a stray cat down there or something. We looked over, and in the corner, we saw something moving around. It wasn't a cat. There was a completely white humanoid figure crawling on its hands and feet from one side of the room to the other. It was the size of a fully grown man. But barely had a distinguishable facial features and long fingers, no body hair or anything. We obviously bolted out there and never went back. We left the toys and blankets and everything down there till we moved out the year later. Our parents refused to believe us, and my sister and I never spoke of it again for years later. I had convinced myself it had to have been a nightmare for years, but I was still terrified I was going to see it again. We were with some friends telling ghost stories. One night, I asked her if she remembered the thing we saw in the crawl space. She told me that she had also assumed it was a nightmare for years, but then told the story exactly as I remembered it. It's been 15 years since I saw that thing. I still have nightmares about it sometimes, and I'm terrified of crawl spaces. A lot more happened in a short year. We lived in that house, but this was by far the worst. No one ever believes this story, but I remember it so vividly, and my sister does too. So we have, for our second story coming in, it is called I Left a Cult Last Year. I never thought this would happen to me, but it did. I'm a Christian, still am, so I'm glad that joining a cult didn't destroy my faith. It all started when I was 13. About 10 years ago, I think, one of my parents joined the church, but my other parent had a bad feeling about the church. We started going maybe 3 years ago, and we would go regularly, twice a week. And I'd visit a few times before that. And although almost everyone was someone related, it was a small church, and I didn't think too much of it at the time. I hadn't been to many churches before, so I didn't realize that things were not right. And I was a new Christian back then, too. So many things that the church did that I thought were normal were not normal. Like when they twisted things from the Bible or did things that were not in the Bible to suit their own agenda. It started with subtle things that they did. It started with the pastor/leader wanting all the young girls and young women to call him dad or daddy. Me and my siblings never ever called him that. People would go to him for permission on every little thing. They couldn't do nothing without asking him first. Like, they couldn't take their family to the movies or to the beach or anything. He had the adults and the parents wrapped around his little finger back then. He would make the young men go by his house on the weekends to clean his house or to cut the lawn. And the young women, of course, had to go tend to his wife's garden outside. And also, he forbade a young woman from bringing any men into the church if she was interested in them, because he already had planned on getting her married to someone from the church instead. This woman ended up leaving too, and we're still friends to this day. The church also had a separate area of land way up in the bushy area of country where they would go often. I had been there a few times. They would go and tend to it and plant flowers and vegetables, stuff like that up there, which didn't seem that bad, but he was always talking about doomsday, like those popular cult leaders, and instilling fear into the congregation. He would basically make it seem like that place would be our new home or our only way to survive and find food. And a lot of the time, people would work really hard just to be obedient to him. Even when sick, they would come out to do all the duties. Then it came to intermarrying. He got his children married to other people from the church. He got other members married to each other, and even tried getting a married man to get a divorce and marry another woman in the church. He separated couples by keeping a woman in his family home away from her husband. He even tried to set me up once to marry someone from the church, but thank God my parents didn't let him. There was also a whole government conspiracy he was involved in, but for safety reasons, I can't talk about it right now until it's safe again. Just like Jonestown, he built another building/house where he lives, so other members could live there. Women, mostly, of course, lived with him. He had very inappropriate relationships with some of these women in particular, and other ex-members of this church he would also have relationships with. And he may have been an unfaithful man, or trigger word here for the word abuse. He may have been an unfaithful man, but also he was abusive. But I can't say if that's true or not. All I do know is that it was extremely bad. He would trigger again for hitting people. You can skip forward a few seconds if you'd like. All I do know is it was very bad back then. He would hit other members of the church. He was controlling. He even insulted members who left the church, which is not what pastors are supposed to do, right? He even knows about a member in the church who, trigger word again for SA, he even knew about a member in the church who SA'd multiple young women and did nothing about it. I sat in front of that man for years. I even went to his house before. It makes me feel sick thinking about it now. He even... there's a lot of other things that happen. A lot of red flags. But being young and naive, I didn't know. So, at least I know now. We left that church over a year ago, and I'm so glad. If I ever see them again, I don't know what I would do. No one who still goes to that church keeps in touch with us. They have since shunned us. Honestly, I'm glad because they're all messed up. So, to the cult church leader that tried to arrange marriage for me, let's never meet again. So here we have our third story that I found very peculiar, and it has to do with witchcraft and paganism. So I thought you guys would find this very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So here we go. On my father's side of the family, I have always been heavily involved with witchcraft and paganism. The story is about my great auntie, and it happened roughly 40 years ago in the countryside of Northern Ireland. My great auntie was a strange lady and had always been involved with witchcraft. My dad had told me they were banned from entering any other rooms in my great auntie's house apart from the living room. Let's just shortly put it, she was a very peculiar woman. One night, my grandfather was out in his field, very late at night, herding cattle, when he suddenly saw out in his field was my great aunt, frolicking, dancing in the field, wearing a beautiful wedding dress, almost like a ball gown, huge wedding dress. And she was dancing in the field, just having fun. Her all of a sudden, my grandfather, extremely confused and startled, approached her. However, he looked back for a quick second to check on his son, my dad, when he turned back, and she disappeared, completely erased, with no trace of her at all, not even footprints. And then, naturally, he went to her house. But when he checked on her at her house, he walked into the bathroom. And all of a sudden, he looked down in the bathtub and saw that she was unalived. She was unalived and rotting away in the bathtub. He phoned the ambulance and later received the information from the autopsy that said she had been lying in the bathtub for 2 whole weeks before lying in the bathtub unalived for 2 whole weeks, rotting away before he saw her dancing in that field. My grandfather was deeply moved by this and decided to demolish the witchcraft-ridden, cursed house my great-auntie lived in. When he sadly passed away in 2003, my dad inherited the land and decided to rebuild on it. In the construction, the building collapsed, crushing a construction worker, sending her into a 5-month coma. Furthermore, 3 months later, on that exact road, a trailer detached from its car, hitting 2 innocent civilians, nearly ending them both. So, the story was way longer, but I can't be bothered to type the rest of it out. That's fine. But wow, what an amazing story. I mean, it's sad, yes, but to see her happy at least, maybe she just wanted to show him that she was okay and that she was happy, in a beautiful gown, frolicking, dancing, being happy and merry. At least he got to see that before he saw her unalived in the bathroom like that. So at least he has a better memory of her to carry with him. Our next story is called How Not to Summon a Demon. Seriously, don't do it. Don't mess with the occult. Seriously. You shouldn't. Best case scenario we have is your old mate, Sharon, down at the pub, who owns way too many cats, tries to summon your dear sweet granny, and you end up crapping your pants when, in a fit of mischief, she spells out, "Die, bee, die," with a Ouija board. Worst case scenario? Well, let me tell you about it. It was cold, very cold, when I woke up. The kind of cold that leaves a man feeling awfully small, if you know what I mean. This was my first clue that something was seriously wrong. Well, that and the fact that I was stark naked. But to be fair, isn't always a red flag, but still, given the temperature, it's not ideal. I didn't remember much of the night before, mostly due to the copious amounts of alcohol I had. But I was sure that I had been someplace very warm when I had passed out. The air was thick, choked with dust, old termite-riddled wood, and something else, the sickening scent of something rotten and unnatural. I jolted upright, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands uselessly clawing at the floor beneath me and the wall behind me. At anything I could reach, as if the surface might shift like sand and give away. The room spun. I was so dizzy. As if the surface might... The room spun. I was too hungover for this crap. Whatever it was. A prank, maybe? I was friends with some real, idiots, after all. The shadows tilted. Where the F was I? I took a deep breath, resigning myself to whatever the hell this was, and I looked around. I wish I hadn't. I wish with all my heart that I had just curled up in a fetal position and waited for sweet mercy, merciful death. What I saw will probably haunt me for the rest of my miserable life. The low ceiling sloped downward. It cracked, beams emerging with ancient spider webs, long abandoned, that stretched like skeletal fingers overhead. The dimness was broken only by a ring of flickering candles, half melted, haphazardly arranged in a lopsided circle in the center of the room. They lit up a trio of beings huddled in a circle. Grotesque creatures, born seamlessly out of my own personal nightmares. They were swaying, muttering, their faces hidden beneath veils of tangled dark hair. Their shrill voices rose and fell in a language that made my bowels loosen. I knew then, without a shred of doubt, that this wasn't a prank. Not even my most deranged friends would go this far. I need to get the F out of here, fast. I pressed my hand against my temple, trying to remember anything. A name, a reason, but all I had was sheer, unfiltered panic. I'm not particularly a pious man by nature, but in that moment, I made a silent promise to any entity, deity, or a demon who might be listening. If they got me out of this mess, I'd never drink again. I almost meant to. I almost meant it, too. My fight or flight instincts finally kicked in. Silence, the monsters had noticed me. Silence, the monsters hadn't noticed me yet. I was firmly team flight. A faint light glowed beneath what must be a door tucked away towards the corner of the room, just past the circle, a way out. Crouching low, I crept towards it as quickly and quietly as I could. I was almost there, almost free, when a floorboard groaned noisily beneath me. Due, I'd like to believe, to shroudy craftsmanship and not my steadily expanding beer belly. I froze. The chanting had stopped. 3 sets of eyes snapped towards me by the dying candlelight. They looked too bright, too human. A chill rolled down my spine like ice water. Then, like a single monstrous organism, they screamed, and hell broke loose. The sound pierced my skull like needles dipped in acid. Instinct surged, feral, uncontrollable. The time for flight was long gone. In a blur, I lunged, not like a man, but like a beast, unchained. One of the creatures barely had time to stand before I tore through it like wet paper. As I felt its bones crunch beneath my fists, something inside me roared in triumph. Another tried to run. Big mistake. I grabbed it by its ankle and yanked it. It hit the floor hard with a sickening yet satisfying crunch. The third screamed longer than the others, and weirdly, I was glad. How dare they turn me into a coward? How dare they wake this in me? Its shrieks went hoarse long before I finally had enough and silenced it. Not with mercy, but with a single brutal blow. Not quite enough to kill, just enough to make it shut up. And then finally, sweet, sweet silence. Only the sound of my own breathing could keep me company, heavy, animal-like. I stood in the middle of the room, chest rapidly rising and falling, soaked in blood that almost certainly wasn't mine. One or more than one of the candles had been knocked over in the conflict and was now starting a merry little fire up the side of the wall. I smiled. Fire, like an old friend. I smiled at the fire like a little old friend. At least things would warm up a little now. And then everything shifted. The light changed as the fire spread. The faces of the monsters softened in the blaze. One had braces. Another wore pajamas with cartoon ghosts on them. Teenage girls. A sickness surged in my gut as I realized just how badly I'd effed up. The seance, the circle, the summoning. Me and my buddies had been so wasted that we thought it would be hilarious to break into the communications office at work after hours to F with the mortals. I hadn't been trapped. I had been brought here. I looked down at my bloody hands. The human skin was thin, delicate, a mask over something ancient and cruel. I could feel it now, burning beneath the surface. Oh, crap. Now that I was sober, I could see that this was very opposite of hilarious. No license, no authentication, and an authorized soul activity. That'd be a mess to explain to the bureau when I got back. And the paperwork, oh my Satan, the paperwork, it scared me more than teenage girls did. Unless I looked at the girl, still breathing, weak pulse, blank stare. I smiled as an idea popped in my head. A smile, just a little too wide for a human face. I guess I'm staying topside for a bit, I said to no one particular. And with that, I knelt down beside her. I whispered a word older than the dark and slipped inside. There's just one problem. This mortal, she's not really much of a host. Poor thing. It's not her fault. I think I hit her harder than I realized. I'll have to find someone else better soon. Someone strong
someone curious, someone like you.